This copy of Shipyard is a 2023 second edition printing of the original game that was published in 2009. Now, what really makes this game stand out is that it does one thing very, very well, and that one thing is action selection. So to give you a sense of this game, rather than just do an overview of the rules, we're going to do a talk through of a few turns so you can understand some of the thinking that's involved in playing Shipyard. To understand this game, we'll focus first on my own shipyard. We're several turns in and I've already acquired a lot. It'll be clear in a moment how I acquired all this, but for now let's keep it simple and focus only on the ship that is under construction. You might notice something that appears like an illegal state. These two parts of the ship don't connect, so why are the tiles placed like this? In this game, construction happens on this row. Once a ship is completed, it moves up here. As a result, the space to the left of this stern will be made available. So having my construction yard like this is allowed. Now let's look at what's on the parts of this ship. You'll see a lot of these green platforms. So what's that all about? At the beginning of the game, I was dealt these secret objectives, which I'm going to keep face up for this video. This objective is giving me points for pairs of businessmen and cranes on all of my completed ships. This objective is giving me points for all of my lifeboats. The other tokens that are here serve as essential functions for the ship, and it'll be easier to see how they're used once the ship is scored. When a ship is scored, it's going to go down a shakedown cruise through this, my canal. Once again, I intended to show you how this all works, but I want you to notice something. This canal also has crane icons and a lifeboat icon, so I'm doubling up here. This means I could score even more points for my cranes and boats. Now over here, I have two employees. These employees were acquired strategically during the game, and you'll see how they upgrade my abilities. This tile represents commodities that I can trade. And of course, I'm going to show you how this is used in my example, but for now, just know that these things are here, ready to be used when I need them. Now that's everything on my player board. I'm now going to shift my focus to the available actions, and we'll talk about what they enable me to do on my turn. This is a setup for a three-person game. Player pieces are blocking the last actions chosen by those players, so there are only 4 actions for me to choose from. To start my turn, I'm going to remove my action tile and place it at the start of the action track. Notice that this will turn the wheel, which also acts as a turn counter. There's a wooden cube that falls into a hole after a full rotation. After a full rotation, one of these cubes is removed, and that counts down to the end of the game. Of the actions that are available to me, 3 of them are represented by rings. I'm going to choose this one. Before I show you what this icon means, I want to demonstrate a side effect of this choice. For each player marker to the right of my newly placed marker, 1 in this case, I receive 1 coin. I'll add that to my personal inventory. Now, this ring is the manufacture equipment action, and you can see that it corresponds to this ring on the main board. All 4 of these rings have their own action, and each operates in the same way. The first thing I'll do is I'll move the action marker clockwise 1 space. If I wanted to, I could move it farther for the price of 1 coin, but in this case, this is exactly what I want. Moving the marker only 1 space places me on the crane, so I can take 1 crane from the supply. This employee that you saw earlier gives me an additional crane whenever I take this action, so I'm going to get 2 cranes on 1 turn. Now that's an entire turn, and now my opponents are going to do the same thing. You're going to see that old action tiles are going to be made available, new action tiles will be claimed, cubes will be moved, and some tiles that are available to draft are going to be removed. Now it's my turn again, and when you're playing this game, it'll often be the case that an action that you want will be blocked. For me, I wanted to take the build ship action so that I could finish my ship, but once again, the action is unavailable to me. So let's take a look at another way to get around this. I'm going to choose the exchange commodities action. It's another one of those ring actions, so I'm going to move the cube over, and I'm going to trade in 1 coal for a smokestack, 1 wheat for a businessman, and silk for 2 coins. I now have quite a few coins. Earlier I described how you can spend coins to advance an action marker and modify the action, but there's something better you can do if you save up. For 6 coins, I can perform an additional action, even an action that is blocked by another player. So I'm going to spend my 6 coins to perform the build ship action. And in this case, because it's a bonus action, the tile does not move. What I really need are mounting points for my smokestacks, and right now these are all in a column that costs nothing. I'm going to take these 2 to complete my ship, and because I can take up to 3, I may as well take 1 more, which I can use later. My action phase is now over, but because I've completed a ship, my turn isn't over yet. Now I have to do a shakedown cruise. So first, I need to outfit my ship. I must have a captain or the ship can't even be scored, and a captain doesn't require a cabin, so I can just put him right here. All of my cranes and smokestacks can be mounted on their corresponding mounting points. The stoker has his own cabin, indicated by its color, and businessmen and any other crew that aren't stokers can go in a regular cabin. But as you can see, I don't have enough cabins for all of my businessmen. That's where this other employee matters. This employee will let me take 2 more crew, but not stokers, and I don't need cabins for them. So using this employee, I can really fill out my ship. With my ship ready, I can now plan its route for the shakedown cruise. But first, it's necessary to calculate its speed and any base points that I'll get. So a ship with 1 stoker and 1 smokestack has a base speed of 4. I have 2 additional smokestacks, so my speed is 6. I also get to score 1 point for each additional crew member and 2 points for each crane. So this is already 10 points. Now I'm going to go on a cruise through my canals. You didn't get to see where these canal tiles came from, but it works the same way as building a ship. Earlier in the game, I used this action 2 separate times to take tiles that I thought would score me a lot of points. Now that I have a canal and I have a ship, I can go on my first cruise and I get to choose where I want to start. So with 6 speed, I'm going to start here. Each point along the way represents a government official who's raiding my ship. The first government official that I encounter is going to give me 1 point for each businessman and crane. That's 6 points. The next space is a blue ribbon space. This gives me 1 point for each space I've traveled so far. So to get here, I've traveled 4 spaces, so that's 4 more points. The next official is evaluating me on safety. I get 1 point per lifeboat. In this case, that's 3 more points. Finally, I have 1 more space like the first for 6 more points. Altogether, I've scored 19 points for this shakedown cruise. I think it's worth noting that if I had found a way to increase my speed by 2, I could have hit the next blue ribbon space and it would have given me 8 points, because again, I get 1 point per space that I traveled up to that point. That wasn't the case for this cruise, but I do think it's worth pointing out. Also note that now that my ship has left this tile, I have to set it aside. This is because you're not allowed to loop back to parts of your canal that you've already been to. From here on out, my ship has to continue moving in this direction. I'm not allowed to do a U-turn in a later shakedown cruise. Shakedown cruises happen at the end of your turn for every ship that you've completed on your turn. You score the ship, and then you put it in your shipyard until the end of the game when you'll score your objectives. As you can see, with all of my lifeboats and businessmen, I'll have plenty more points to accumulate at the end of the game. Now, I hope you found that informative. I'm really looking for feedback on this way of presenting the rules of a game. So if you could give me a little feedback in the comments, let me know if you thought that was just right, or if you think it needed a little bit more information, let me know that too. And I'm still looking for what to call this method of teaching. Is it a turn talk through or a slice of gameplay? Is it a round demonstration? I don't really know, but I need something for my video title. So looking for ideas, but let's go ahead now and talk about Shipyard. So I always break things down starting with theme and mechanics, but today I want to start first with artistry, because I think there's something really special about this game that I want to point out before I get to the other elements of its game design. And that is, this has kind of a new angle to artistry. A lot of times when I'm rating a game on artistry, I'm looking at the artwork and I'm looking at the quality of the components. Oftentimes, figurines or painted wooden meeples, all of those things attract me to artistry. But it's sort of a surface level degree of artistry that, usually gets that extravagant score. And what I think I really appreciate in Shipyard, as well as some other games by Vladimir Suchy, is that the artistry isn't in the look of the game, but rather the function of the pieces. I'm talking specifically of this round counter, where the players are picking up that action tile and using that to advance a round counter. Not only that, but you've also got the tray for all of the components that looks like a container that goes on a ship. You've got the crane that keeps all of the tiles, and all together, when you're setting up this game, it feels like you're building a shipyard. And that is so interesting to me. As far as the artwork is concerned, is this a very impressive with the graphics? I'm not very impressed with the graphics on this artwork at all, but I'm very impressed with the environment that you build that serves to add a feel to the game. It gives it a degree of beauty, and it's all very functional. I'm going to lean a little bit more on the side of extravagant, because this to me is a creative way to exhibit artistry in game design. So we're going to start with that. Now we're going to talk about the game's design in terms of mechanics or theme. And here I think this game, despite the environment that it creates, the reason you play this game isn't about building ships. It's really the mechanics of action tiles. I think the same thing about a game like Russian Railroads. In fact, I feel like this is kind of like the ship version of Russian Railroads, where it has a theme in there. There's a lot going on with these ships and the way that you're scoring. I think a lot of how that scoring is motivated is thematic, but the game is fully focused on honing in on one single mechanic, and that's what makes this game fun. So for design, I'm putting my rating firmly over here. For interaction, like most Euro games, this is a more isolated game. However, how you play the game is very influenced by what your opponents are doing. Think back to the example about when I took the manufacture equipment action. I took cranes because cranes was best for my scoring, and the opportunity was best right at that moment. Had it not been on that position, had it been on a different position, I would have to pay coins to advance the cube around until it got to the crane action that I wanted. You're paying attention to your opponents, watching and keeping track of the game state, and seeing when the opportunity is just right so you can seize it when it comes your way. That's really where the interaction falls in for this game. For strategy, I think it's clear that this is a skill-based game. There are very few elements of luck. The two things that do come up are the randomness of the ship tiles coming out for the build ships action and the randomness of the canal tiles when those come out. But I feel like there are enough of those, there's enough choices there that's not going to have a huge influence in the game where like you can attribute losing to just not having the right tiles. But I'll tell you the real challenge in this game, it's playing the entire game without having any of your turns be wasted. So when I've played this game, I normally get about 3 ships sent out. And of course, I'm placing all of the tiles on my inventory on these ships. What I don't like is when the game is over and I have tiles that never made it onto any ships because I didn't plan to build ships that could accommodate them. That just means that all of the turns used for those tiles were wasted. Or if I have ship tiles that don't get a piece put on them, then that's wasted. And of course, it takes a lot of skill to plan in order to avoid that. For complexity, I almost want to call this a light, heavyweight Euro game. And that's because the rules are very simple. There's only a few actions. It's not hard to learn, but it has that heavyweight Euro feel because there's so much planning involved and so much that you want to accomplish with your ships. It's just very involved in your head, thinking through everything that you need to do. And so it has that heavyweight feel to it, even though this is not a very hard game to learn. Now I'd like to share my final thoughts, and let's start with the negative first. One thing you have to understand about me is that though I am a board game reviewer, I don't like live in some board game reviewing factory where people are playing every board game all the time. I am a dad who is trying to play games with his friends, and every time I bring a game to the table, I have to sell it. I should say, hey, we should play this game because this game is going to be so fun or interesting or whatever the angle is. I have to sell it. I can't just be like, hey guys, we need to play this game because I have to make a review for YouTube. And so The challenge with a game like this for me, as well as for anybody else, is that building ships is a really dry theme. People don't get excited about this game. So it doesn't look at the artwork. It looks the only game that I have that's this awesome and looks this dumb is probably Concordia. I hate the cover of Concordia. So I have to bring it to the table and I have to say, hey, this boring looking game, it has such a pure mechanic, so we should play it. But still, I have lots of games that have cool mechanics and they're not dry. So how does this one rank with everything else? It's like you've got a perfect game, but it's not the game, it's me. I'm sorry, game. I need something that has a more like bite to it thematically. That's like the downside of this game. But earlier when I was comparing this game, talking about theme and mechanics, I compared it to Russian Railroads. I mean, this game has the feel of a classic mechanically driven Euro game, like Russian Railroads or Hansa Teutonica, like those ones, area control, worker placement. This one, action selection. It's just so perfectly honed down to what it does best. And then you talk about the scoring, like there's so many ways to optimize your score, but at the beginning of the game, you just have those default ways. Everything gets, every crew gets 1 point, all of the equipment gets 2 points. Yeah, you can play the game like that, but man, you're not going to win unless you figure out how to use your canals well and capitalize on that with your secret objectives. And you can get a lot of points that way. So I think that makes it very, very interesting. And I can, get people excited by describing the mechanics. I wish that it had more thematic draw to it. And then I would say my only other criticism is that with those secret objectives, players at the beginning of the game could be assigned objectives that kind of they're stepping on each other's toes. So while two players are in conflict with each other and possibly, taking actions or equipment that the other person was hoping to get, another person could have secret objectives that don't conflict with the other two players at all. So you get this runaway lead because they just happen to have an objective that the other people aren't, interfering with. And that dynamic isn't intentional, it's under the surface because no one knows what the secret objectives are. And I kind of don't like that. Like, why do they have to be secret? Maybe they could be face up so you could tell, oh well, my opponent is pursuing that, so because he's doing that, I'm going to count on that in order to plan for my turn. But instead they're face down, you have no idea what they're doing, and whether that leads to an action that helps you or hurts you, you're not really going to know because you don't know everything that's incentivizing them. I think that would be like my nitpicky criticism of how the game is designed. I haven't played it with face-up objectives. Maybe that's an easy fix, just to have more transparency about why people are doing what they do. But in any case, I don't really care because whether I win or lose when I'm playing a Euro game like this, I play for the independent challenge that I'm experiencing, which is that I just want to do the best I can do. I mentioned earlier, eliminating waste, making sure that no turn is wasted. That's what makes this game fun. So those are my thoughts. Don't forget to give me some feedback on how I did the rules explanation. I'm really interested to hear more about how I could do better with that if I need to. And thank you. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.